Before 2020, we were watching massive monetary intervention for what they told us was no reason really, just a technical adjustment. The repo crisis is still going on today, but it's old news, so nobody dares to cover it for lack of clicks and views. Fast forward to 2020, and we have witnessed a huge decline in the global economy at a rate not seen in 100 years. And their response? We need to print more money. Oh, that's not a good sign. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. All of their solutions to these problems is simply print more money, add to the deficits, expand the debt. They don't even realize what's happening right now, at least based on what they're showing us. Based on what they're telling us, their response is actually making things worse in the end, but this is where we're at. You and I know what's going on. We are the ones who are educating ourselves daily, and so we can be on top of this. But those politicians, individuals connected with government in one way, shape, or form, they have to do whatever the puppet masters tell them to. And so you and I, we are going to be looking at it like, obviously we should be doing this action and they're doing that action. And when it doesn't add up, we have to realize that there's so much more going on. It's never really about fixing the problem. It's about follow the money. Money makes the world go round. So I want to expand on that in what I show you at the beginning of this video today, and we're going to look at what the IMF has said. I'm going to show you a lot of other details as well, but I wanted to begin with this. The Fed said it could supply the economy with $2.3 trillion. It hasn't come close so far. Thank goodness. But of course, they have done so much at this point, and yet they are being told you haven't done enough. Through their lending programs, they said 2.3 trillion. So far, that has totaled 143 billion. That's 6.2% of the total firepower. There are several likely explanations for why what was supposed to be an infusion of cash into the economy instead has been a comparative trickle. The Main Street lending program, according to so many, is complex and convoluted. The Federal Reserve should not be lending money to anybody, but they were being pressured, at least that's what they are told here, into doing more. So what do? They create this facility, special purpose vehicle, print money out of thin air, give it to the businesses, and everything's going to be a-okay. But this is actually giving them more stake into a place they shouldn't have any. IMF slashes its forecast for the global economy and warns of soaring debt levels. As I've said always about the IMF, I wrote about them in both of my books. This institution has great reports. It points to the problems. Their solutions, on the other hand, I definitely don't agree with. The IMF also downgraded its GDP forecast for 2021. The fund cautioned that the forecasts are surrounded with unprecedented uncertainty. And that, of course, is going to take place at any moment when you have a problem that's so global and so, as they use the word, unprecedented. There really isn't much to compare it to. So you have a lot of variances in this report and in any of the other reports out there. The United States is expected to contract by 8% this year. The IMF had estimated a contraction of 5.9% in April. So one of the very few that actually would make things look worse during a revision, but we'll see what actually happens and what numbers they intend on posting. Further along, they had this to say. I thought it was really amazing to see how big this really is. Catastrophic hit to the labor markets. The steep decline in inactivity comes with a catastrophic hit to the global labor market. The IMF indicated that the global decline in work hours in the second quarter of the year is likely to be equivalent to a loss of more than 300 million full-time jobs. It's hard to put that to scale, but we're just looking at something that is massive because it affects everybody all around the world to one degree or another. They've been hit by what's going on here. I've shown you the different lineups for the food banks, for the unemployment. We can see the numbers that are soaring and people are struggling to make ends meet. This is not going to be resolved by the Federal Reserve printing money and buying mortgage-backed securities, but they'll do it anyway because they gave up a little bit throughout 2018 and they absolutely need to get all that back. They want to own everything and they're going ahead as planned. Today's IMF report is a warning to the world about what will happen if policymakers take their foot off the gas. That's right, they have to do more. Check this out. This quote is from a former IMF senior advisor, okay? The uncertain spread of what we've got going on here in 2020, the risk of rising trade tensions, and debt vulnerabilities in emerging economies all lead to the same conclusion: we have not done enough. That's right, trillions upon trillions of dollars have been added into these different markets, into these different establishments, all making their way into a few select hands. And apparently that's not enough. Well, look at this. The extent of the recent rebound in financial market sentiment appears disconnected from shifts in underlying economic prospects. That is absolutely true, as you can see, particularly NASDAQ stocks, V-shaped recovery. The economy, on the other hand, nobody knows. It looks terrible in many cases. As I've said, as I've shown you the statistics, as we have documented here, when you look at what's going on with certain places that have quote-unquote reopened, the numbers aren't good. There has been some purchases that have been taking place, but all the data that we have right now is not good. The economy is not good. I keep seeing the comments every day. You keep saying there's a collapse. You keep saying that this is happening and it's not true. Look at Amazon stock. Look at this. And I'm not talking about that. I have said on numerous occasions that the devaluation of the currencies can make asset prices rise. This is what they're doing. I documented that all throughout 2018. I don't understand why I keep seeing that Main Street is not Wall Street. Why do people get that confused? Global recession deepens. The IMF is predicting a 2020 global contraction of 4.9%. I want you to look at this specifically because we compare it to what we saw during the financial crisis. Financial crisis was a big problem. You know what was going on. You saw it. You looked at all that information, and yet when you see the contraction, it is minus 0.1. And looking at it on this chart, it's barely noticeable there, but when you compare it to what we are looking at right now, that is not good. The current downturn compares with a loss of about 10% of global economic output in the 1930s. So this is really big. This is important to keep focused on and look at everything as it comes out. The wave of bankruptcies that are coming through right now is very frightening. I've got some data on that, but it just shows you how many people, how many businesses, how much is really being seen for so many. The World Trade Organization had this report, and I just wanted to note one thing. Global commercial flights, which carry a substantial amount of international air cargo, were down nearly 3/4, minus 74% between January and April. They have since risen 58% through mid-June. So they're talking about a partial recovery, but this is from historic lows. The levels which they're at now is still down year over year significantly. So there certainly has been a rebound when we look at what's going on with global trade. Things are still moving from port to port, but I can attest to the cost for shipping cargo from place to place. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're using air cargo right here in 2020, it's extremely expensive. Sea shipping, on the other hand, has remained really cheap. They've got a lot of data in here on the trade issues. If you want to look at it, this article will be in the description under the sources. This isn't quite as funny as what we saw in Argentina, but it's certainly worth looking at. A 100-year bond at less than 1%, it's no big deal. Nothing says it's cheap to borrow quite like Australia's latest century bond. Imagine that, 100 years. It's just ridiculous, that the fact that these can even exist. But here they are today, they're becoming popular, and as far as I'm aware from what I read, it was 8 times oversubscribed. 8 times! The demand for such debt is so high, and that's despite how little the reward is. So what does that tell you about what's happening to the markets today? The financial system is rotten from within. Fitch downgrades Canada's ratings to AA+, so they have lost their AAA rating, and this is not a good thing for them. I think it will only make matters worse for what's happening with the debt. The US had lost its AAA at one point years ago, but that doesn't seem to be reducing the appetite for US debt, that's for sure. Many stores have gone bankrupt, and this is just one more to add to the list. We're talking about GNC. But look at the way that they worded this. This is directly from their website. GNC accelerates store optimization and growth strategies. They forgot to mention in the title, although they do lower down in this press release, that they are looking to close 800 to 1,200 stores. This is one company closing approximately 1,000 stores. How many people are going to be laid off in the process? Retail is getting decimated, and there's no other way to put it. And yet, this occupies so many of the jobs. That's why it's so important. That's why I looked at the store closures consistently throughout 2019, because it is massive. New York City considers 22,000 job cuts to save $1 billion, and that's according to the mayor himself. So this is what they have to do every single time. They cut costs, and when they cut costs, that means people are going to lose their jobs. I don't know how it's all going to work out. I don't know who is going to be able to stick around and get their pay, but it just shows you how significant this problem is. It's affecting all levels, the small businesses, government employees, and so on. And one to finish the video off, US targets $3 billion of EU and UK imports for new tariffs. We'll see what happens with this. It did not go very well when this started with China and the US, and you know what's going on with that today. We have to pay particular attention to the tariff situation and the rising geopolitical tensions between the US and China, but also between the US and Europe. I'm going to end the video there. If you found it informative, please hit that thumbs up button. When you do, you are supporting me by clicking a button on your screen. You support this channel. Thank you very much. If you want to check me out on Instagram and Twitter, I'm doing information on there every single day at The Money GPS. Do you want to understand e-commerce? Do you want to know how it all works? Well, I have a free e-course for you, the AmazonGPS.com. In my 2 books, I explain everything you need to know about the global economy, about geopolitics, about the financial system, all of that in here, link in description. If you want the audiobook, themoneygps.com. Have you seen this video yet? It's really important. A lot of data in here. Definitely watch it. Click it. I'll see you there.